All right, let's continue on this house building project. So you should have gone into your Onshape account, into your folder, into your ranch house project where we've already made some land. Now, I've played around with this and kind of realized that just like in real life, slopes are more difficult to build on. So this has become kind of a problem. So I'm going to ask us to scrap this and redo it. It won't take you very long. So I apologize for the mistake. So let's do this, and we're going to delete this part studio and insert new element, create a part studio. We're going to sketch on the right click, new sketch. Let's hit P to turn off planes and N to view normal to the sketch plane. As we did before, we're going to hook up to this point right here. Now this time, let's go ahead and make a rectangle. It'll be a little easier to deal with. So we're going to make a corner to corner rectangle. Click on that origin point and drag. Okay. Now we're going to click, and that bottom line is going to show up. We're going to make that 100 feet. 100 feet. So 1,200 inches. Okay, to be 100 feet, hit enter once to bring it up to this other one where we're going to put 120 inches, 10 feet tall. Enter. Okay, notice it got really big compared to what we were doing before, and that's fine. So basic. If that didn't work out for you, you can undo and try again. Finish your sketch. Extrude this sketch, and I'm tilting it a little bit, and we're gonna go a total of 1,200 inches. In other words, 100 feet. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to turn off the origin point because I don't want to see it anymore. Now notice the view cube will show us what the right side is and the front is. So on the front, we're going to put that our name again. But before we do that, I'm going to color this. I'm going to do it a little different than we did it last time. I'm actually going to color the whole part so it stays one color. So we'll right click on part one, edit the appearance of this, and again, choose something that looks like land to you. Okay, check mark, that'll be good. And again, we are going to sketch by choosing sketch and sketch on the front. N brings us normal. We're going to draw a text box approximately like so. And again, put your name in there. And good. And oops, I'm a little bit big on that. I wonder if I can adjust it. I can move it. Let me see if I can adjust that size a little bit. Should be able to. It's only allowing me to. I wonder if I can double click and change the size of it. Nope, doesn't look like it. I'm gonna have to try that one again. All right, sketch on this face. I'm gonna draw my text box a little smaller this time. There we go. And name. All right. Oops, I didn't mean to hit enter in the box. I'm hit backspace there. Green check mark. Okay, looks good. All right, check. And then we're going to, as we did last time, extrude. Make sure you hover over and select the text, or sometimes it won't get like the inner part of the G's. And we're going to go out. Doesn't matter how far. I'll go maybe 6 inches. And then I'm going to make that extrusion a different color by right-clicking on Extrude to, add appearance to the feature, and make it whatever color will show up. All right, so now we have a nice square level piece of land, and we're going to be using that to build on. Before moving on, let's go down here to where it says part 1 and right click on that and rename it. Let's just call it land. And we are now ready to break ground. But wait, there's some things to think about before that happens. A lot of things have to be thought about before we break ground. Before this ever can happen, there's a lot of things that are going to be considered before either an individual home or a subdivision can break ground and start being built. So first of all, you have city or county planning. That means that you've got to look at the city or county is looking at a lot of different things for what's going to happen. So zoning laws have to do with what properties can do what. So what kind of land can have housing built on it? What land is going to be used for commercial? What other land is going to be used for schools and things like that. Then there's permitting. So counties and or cities will provide permits which allow a builder to build. Those can be restricted. Those can they're going to cost money. You need to plan for fire and emergency services. If you're going to have 2,000 homes being built in an area, there has to be planning for that. So there has to be planning for police and public safety. What happens if that area is needing to be evacuated? Emergency preparedness needs to be planned for. So is it in a floodplain? Is there a possibility of earthquakes, hurricanes? Is this in a fire area? All of that stuff needs to be taken into account. Okay, so that's just in the overall big picture planning stages. When we start deciding what's going to get built where, then we start thinking about infrastructure. That means things that have to be in place before the building happens. So roads have to be built. You can't have a 2-lane road and that's all that there is going into an area that's going to have 1,000 more people. You're going to have to plan for that. If there's going to be an area beyond the development, then roads need to be built so that they can be expanded later on. Will the power grid be able to handle this new building project? If not, what's going to need to happen to get power there? Water supply, and where is the water going to come from to supply all these people? And does the current water company have the ability to supply that? There's going to be a gas supply. There is going to be sewage treatment needed. So where's the wastewater going to go and how is it going to get treated, and is there infrastructure for that that's adequate, or does new need to be built? So drainage needs to be thought about. So this is a big deal when you have an area of open land and there's a lot of rain. Then the land tends to absorb a lot of the water and it goes into the groundwater. But when you have homes and roads and such, that water doesn't have a place to go and needs to drain off. So that needs to be planned for. What is the environmental impact of this? Are we in an area where there are ecosystems that we need to think about? And in regards to that, will there need to be green belts and natural areas kept in place? So all of that needs to be thought about. Okay, then we need to think about needs of the people, social needs. So builders are required to have a certain percentage of the homes that they build be low-income housing, and not just come in and build a bunch of high-cost homes to make the highest profit, but they need to consider the needs of everyone. You need to consider parks and recreation. So will there be, how many parks are you going to have? How big will there be? Will there be sports complexes? That sort of thing. Schools need to be planned for. We need to plan for public transportation and how that's going to happen in the new area. And once that happens, then builders need to plan. So builders need to think about things like labor and contractor availability. Builders use what's called subcontractors a lot. Subcontractors are people that do the concrete, or they're framers, or they're roofers, or they're people that do the heating and air conditioning system. So a lot of those different contractors need to be available to meet a certain time frame. And if they're not, then bad things are going to happen. We're going to get behind. What are the current housing trends? And that will include your marketing. How are you going to be able to sell these things? What is the availability of materials for building? It is common to have concrete shortages. What happens when you're in a concrete shortage? You can't get concrete for your foundations. That puts you behind schedule. What are your sustainable practices, and are you able to do that? Creating low waste, low transportation of materials, and that sort of thing. And then finally, when we're building, we need to think about some things in that process. So what are, for example, you need a soils evaluation. So soil is a big deal for building. What kind of soil? Is that soil going to move? Is it going to compress when you put weight on it? Will it drain? All of that needs to be taken into consideration. Surveying is where we find out where the property lines are and where the roads are going to go and things, because you can't build a house outside of its property line. That needs to be done. And coordination with public utilities to make sure that the public utilities are able to keep up with the builders, and builders are able to keep up with public utilities, and so on and so forth. So all of that stuff needs to happen. And this is just stuff that I came up with off the top of my head. There's probably a lot of other things that I didn't even think of that are part of the process, and even getting to the point where you can break ground. But let's say we've gone through that process and we're ready to go, and we're ready to start digging trenches that are going to hold our foundation. So the foundation is going to consist of a footing. A footing is a wide area that's going to support the weight of the home and the foundation on the ground. And the footing is usually wider than the walls because it's carrying a bigger footprint, so it doesn't sink into the ground. Our footing is going to be 24 inches wide. Now, there's different requirements. Usually that's a little too big, but it'll make it easy for us to build it. A two-story house will need a footing that is wider than a one-story house. It's carrying more weight. So there's different requirements for different codes, for different soils, for different types of homes in different areas. On top of that footing will be a stem wall that is going to then support the walls in the house and all that stuff. Now, inside of this whole thing is going to be what we call rebar. Now, what rebar is for is rebar will go through the footings and the walls, and it supports the concrete in such a way where if the concrete cracks, it's not going to pull apart or separate or whatever else. If you've ever seen sidewalks that are separated, it's because sidewalks don't usually have rebar in them, and so if there's a crack, they can move. If you look at your foundation of your own home or a home nearby, you will see cracks in that foundation because concrete naturally cracks. The rebar is what holds everything together and makes sure that the pieces don't separate. Now, there's rebar in the bottom. There's also rebar coming up through those stem walls that holds everything together. So here's another example of what that looks like. Now, what we're seeing here is forms that will make the concrete nice and neat and square where you want it to be. And below those forms, it's a little hard to see in this picture, but it's actually open where the concrete kind of pours out into that footing to get its nice wide space. So to get that platform. So this is what it would look like. All right, so we're ready to break ground, we've got our permits, we've done our planning, and we're ready to build. So here's how we're going to do this on this piece of land. We're going to have to build our footing first and dig our trenches. The house itself is 41 by 31. Now I'm going to make that 32 by 42 just because even numbers are a little easier to deal with. And then there's a 20 by 20 garage on the end. That's a really small garage, by the way. We would probably make that bigger if we were really building something. But we'll leave that as is because it's easy to deal with a nice clean number like that. So here's how we're going to do that. We're going to sketch by clicking on sketch and then click on this surface on the top. Now, we're going to view normal by hitting N. Now, for some reason, sometimes you can be here, and if you hit N, it will make it upright like that. So we can use these arrows to click. If you click 6 times, it will bring you back to normal like this. So we're looking straight down. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a rectangle. Now, the footing, remember, is 24 inches. So it's actually 8 inches larger than the wall, because we're going to have a 8-inch wall in the middle of a 24-inch footing. So here's how this works. We're going to make a rectangle. Now up here in rectangle, there is a center point rectangle. Click on that. We're going to find the approximate center here, but come to the left just a little bit because we're going to account for the garage. So I'm in the center, I'm moving over a bit, about there. We can move it later if we want to. And we're going to click, and after we click, pull to pull out that rectangle. Now, get it about like what you see here. Click again, let go, and that's going to allow us to size this thing. Now we want it 42, okay, but it's going to be 42 feet plus another 8 inches on one side and 8 inches on the other side. Okay, so the best way to do that is to do a little bit of math. Since this is the outside of the trench that we're making right now, we're going to put in that I need it to be 42 feet times the 12 inches per foot. So I better click in there. Uh-oh, messed that up. All right, so I accidentally hit something. This might happen to you. Either undo is usually the easiest. Click again, little off center, click. Okay, so I'm entering 42 times 12 because we're measuring, this is in inches, plus 16. An order of operations will work on this because we're going to the outside. Hit enter and it's going to go to the other one, and we're going to put in 32 times 12 plus 16 inches. And that's going to size that just about right for us. Now, if I don't, I can hit escape to get out of this command. I'm going to move it over. You can do this after you're done. You got to think about where the garage is going to be. The garage is going to be over here. So just get it there. We can move the whole thing on later on. Now, I've got this at the correct dimensions for the outside. Now I need the inside of the footing. So there's a neat little trick we can use rather than drawing that whole thing again, which is this thing called offset. So come up here to offset, click that, and you're going to click all 4 lines of your rectangle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this little arrow shows up, which I can left mouse and hold and pull, and notice that it's it's taking the whole thing, and you can either go outside or inside. So I'm going to go inside, click, and that's going to allow me to enter the 24 inches that I want that footing to be. Enter. Okay. So this is a 24-inch wide footing. All right, so we're ready to go with that. Now we're going to have to do the garage. Now I think I will do the garage separate from this. So I'm going to go ahead and dig out these footings now. So here we go. We're going to say I'm done with this. I like to tilt it a little bit, right click, tilt, so I can see what I'm doing, to extrude. Now, we've always added to this point, but we're going to do a little bit different now. So hover over so that you can see both of those lines, and we're going to click in between them. I don't want in here and I don't want out here. I want in between those two lines. Click. Okay, you can kind of see it. Now, what's different this time is we're not going to add to this. We're going to remove from it, which notice the arrow switches to the other way. And we're going to cut down to a depth of, we're going to go to a depth of 18 inches here, which is typically about right for the depth that your trenches are going to have to be. And enter. And we have trenches. Yay, where those footings are going to go. All right, cool. So next is we're going to have to think about where the garage goes. So we're going to do yet another sketch over here on this surface, and we're going to draw our garage. Now, the only thing I want is I'm going to need to reference this edge right here, but I don't think it will let me reference that yet. I'm going to click on top or N for normal to make sure I'm in the right spot. Now, here's the easiest way to do this. It's a little weird because our garage is sharing one wall with the house. So my wall is going to be inside of where this edge is right here. So I have to calculate for that. So here we go. I'm going to make another rectangle. It's okay to make a center point rectangle. Now I'm purposely going to come way over here away from the house and click and pull. Now, when I click the first time, I have to think about this a little bit. Before we made our outside of the footing 16 inches. This time, however, we're only going to make it 8 inches bigger because it's going to share part of that other footing. So I need this to be 20 feet times 12, and we're going to only add plus 8 inches. Now on the other side, when I hit enter and go to the other side, that is going to be 20 feet times 12 for the 20 feet, but that's going to be plus 16 because it's not sharing a wall with the house. Plus 16. Enter. Now, I know I drew it and you're going, Mr. Clapp, it's way over there. What are you doing? I thought it was attached to the house. Okay, little trick here. What I need to do is I'm going to hook this up to this. I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to click point, and I'm going to hover over this line. See where that square shows up? When you hover over the line, a square shows up. We're going to click on that square, and that's the midpoint of that line. And we're going to do the same thing here, hover over and click, and it's going to put that on that point. Now, come up here to your toolbars, and this one here has a whole bunch of different things in it, and the one we're going to use is coincident. Click on coincident, and we're going to hook this point. Careful not to choose a line. You're going to just choose the point. Click that point. We're going to make coincident to that point. and it will lock them both together. Cool? All right. Now we are going to offset again. And we're going to offset, but this time we are not going to do this line. We are only going to do 3 of them. And we're going to offset this and this and this. And we're going to use that arrow to come in, grab it and pull it, click, and it's going to be 24 inches. Enter. Cool. All right. Now, I'm going to finish that sketch, and we are going to now extrude that down 18 inches. So extrude, we're going to choose the inside of that C-shaped thing, and we are going to remove 24 inches. Enter. And good. All right. Now, oops, I said 24. My bad. I meant 18. Sorry if you did that. I'm going to go back and edit that by double clicking on Extrude 4 and type 18 is what I meant to do. There we go. All right. Cool. So we've got our footings dug now for our garage and for our house. All right. Get this to where you can kind of see it, something like that, along with your name on there. Let's get a picture of that and turn it in, and we will start working on the stem walls next time.